Hello, and welcome to another round of Sarah Sabian's Question Time. Now, you can tell it's that time of year when we're approaching the end of 2025 because I'm getting a lot of questions recently from media, from clients on trends to look out for in 2026. So, this video is about what key trends do I see coming up in the workplace in 2026. This will probably be a two-part video, actually. So this video will be about general trends, and then I will do another video on AI trends that I see in the workplace in 2026. So we have had a few years now of pendulum swings. So going from one type of extreme to the other. So as I look back on 2025, there have been various pendulum swings away from what existed a few years ago. So returning to working full time from the office is something that accelerated in 2025. Moving towards accelerated use of AI in the workplace is something that really picked up pace in 2025 and is in contrast from, let's say, a very human focus in the post-COVID pandemic world. So I'm going to talk about three things in this video. Firstly, redefining empathy and emotional intelligence in 2026. Secondly, companies taking a more strategic approach to the use of AI in the workplace rather than kind of a slapdash approach. And as I said, I will do a separate video on that. And thirdly, a growing understanding that in order to achieve the highest levels of performance inside of work, it's really in employers' interest to help employees understand the importance of other areas of life and how doing well in those areas actually leads to better performance at work. So, number one, redefining empathy in the workplace. So, empathy was really a buzzword around 2021, 2022. And even in those times, when I was talking about empathy, I took pains to talk about mutual empathy, which I defined as a leader who cares, but also someone that is very clear on boundaries, expectations, and holds people accountable. Today, I see empathy can be misconstrued by many leaders as being soft or being weak or being a pushover. And essentially, that's a misunderstanding of what empathy and its purpose is. Because of this misunderstanding, some leaders and companies have really turned away from it. And I mean, practically speaking, even if, the corporate culture talks about empathy, but in practice, leaders are moving away from that idea. Now, the opposite of empathy is ultimately unhelpful. So, taking a very authoritarian approach to leadership, because yes, a fear-based culture does produce results because people are in fear of losing their jobs or the competition screwing them over or whatever it is. And it may well lead employees to work long hours and do what you say. But what you don't have is that really high quality output, the real creativity of thought, the best innovation or optimized productivity. And you certainly will never have loyalty. Now, the way I talk about empathy is that it has a purpose in the workplace. And its purpose is not empathy for empathy's sake, not making everyone feel great all the time. It's understanding how to speak to people in a way that influences them to bring their A game to work, to really perform, to really get that buy-in and loyalty. In other words, empathy enables you to get the best out of people. Now, in order to understand how to communicate this, you need to understand how people think and understand how people feel so that you can communicate accordingly. And that is the purpose of empathy at work, as well as, you know, having boundaries, setting expectations. I see this really coming into the spotlight in 2026 as workplaces try to really understand how does emotional intelligence fit into the corporate culture, what's its purpose, and how do we really implement and integrate that. The second trend is a more strategic approach to the use of AI. So it's really great that a lot of companies and employees within those companies have been using AI for streamlining work. However, indiscriminate use of it with no rhyme or reason, so without any strategic thinking behind it, has long-term consequences. And that's on an individual level, long-term consequences for the brain, for skills development, but also on a company level in terms of being unique, standing out from competitors. So AI is an absolutely incredible tool, and we should all be using it in the workplace. But there are potential downsides and nuances that should be considered in 2026 so that a company can use it in a way that works for them, improves efficiencies, but doesn't impact creativity, doesn't impact innovation, doesn't impact leadership and skills development. And therefore, I see a trend occurring in the most competitive market leaders in particular industries. For those companies, they are starting to slash defining what is our AI policy. And leaders need to model the use of AI, which means a deeper understanding of what it's great for and what it's not so great for. So if you want to really succeed as a company and make sure that you're using AI in the best possible way, so you're benefiting from the upsides without being hampered by the downsides, you are going to want to spend time doing a strategic AI policy and implementing that. And the third thing that I see happening as a trend in 2026 is a deeper understanding of how everything we do outside of work can increase our performance within work. So as AI frees up time, employees should be encouraged to focus attention on some of the other important areas of life, like physical health, like hobbies, because this creates a higher performing culture. And it's a misconception that if you focus 100% of your attention on one area, that you're going to really generate the best results. So if you focus 100% attention on work, your work performance is going to be amazing. Because what we learn outside work can be applied in work, and everything is interconnected. And it is no accident that the highest performing leaders in the world have, for example, hobbies, which you can see how they translate into them doing better in their fields of expertise. So Steve Jobs' hobby calligraphy directly contributed to some of the Apple fonts that were designed. Einstein used music to stimulate some of his greatest scientific breakthroughs. And the smartest leaders are actually seeing these links, realizing that everything is interconnected, and using that to really develop greater levels of genius, brilliance, creativity, and innovation as they go about their roles in the workplace.